Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and it is tutorial day. It's Friday and I've got a great project for you today. So let's take a look at this quilt behind me. So I think this is just beautiful. I love the blue and white fabric and I love the double painting. Now the name of this fabric line is called French Quarter, so it made me think of cafe windows. And so I think they just look like cafe windows and I can't wait to show you how to make it. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one packet of 10-inch squares, and we have used French Quarter by Maywood Studios. You're going to need some accent fabric, and you're going to need 3/4 yard, and that's for this little inside painting right here. And then you're going to need some background fabric, 1 1/4 yards, and that includes your sashings, your inner border, and these little squares right here. And you're also going to need some border yardage. We made a nice 6-inch border, and you're going to need 1.5 yards. For your backing, you're going to need 4 3/4 yards, and let me show you that backing. It's beautiful. Love this backing. It's beautiful. This is a great quilting pattern. It's called Square Meander, and this makes a nice size quilt. It's 73 by 73. It's also going to be helpful for you to have a squaring tool, and of course my favorite is the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, and it's trimmer A. Okay, so to make this, you're going to open up your pack and you're going to take a look at it because you're going to need 16 light squares, and I've got a pile of those right there, and you're going to need 16 dark squares, and you want to have really good contrast in those squares. Oh, this is a light one, so let's move him over to the light pile. So 16 lights, 16 darks. Then you're going to choose one square to be your center of your sashing squares, and you'll get all of those out of just one square. So choose one, and we'll choose this one. And then you should have about 11 squares left over, and out of those, you're going to cut your 3-inch squares. You really need only 10 of those, but we're going to cut them into 3-inch strips to make 3-inch squares, and you'll see how that all works when I put it together. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and take our 16s, and we're going to take a light like this and a dark like this, and we're going to put them right sides together like this. We've done this lots of times with me. Right sides together, and we are going to sew all the way around the outside edge. So 1/4 inch all the way around the outside edge. Now I have one of those already done here. So here's my dark and my light. I've sewn all the way around the outside edge. And now I'm going to cut this twice diagonally so that I can make 4 half-square triangles. These are going to be squared to 6.5. So let's go ahead and cut this diagonally. Once that way, corner to corner, and once this way. And then we're going to square these to 6.5. So I'm going to take my Clearly Perfect, and I'm going to lay my seam line on their seam line. And if it's cut right, or if it lines up, you can scoot it all the way over to one side and just trim one side, and that will make your 6.5-inch square. And then we're going to set that over. We're going to grab that little tail there, trim this corner, and we're going to put this over here to iron. So I'm going to go ahead and line this one up. And this one also I can just line and cut one side. So it makes it really handy when you can do that. If not, you'll just cut around both sides. And I'll do that right here to show you. So you can put it right here in the middle like this. And you're going to cut off that little edge right there. You're going to come up this side and down the other. And cut off that little edge. So you can also use any square that has a diagonal line on it. You can square it with that one as well. Let me get this little stuff out from under here. And yep, this one I'm going to have to trim on both sides just a little bit. There we go. All right. So then we're going to press these open. they're squared to 6.5. And you'll have your 4 half square triangles. Now, mine, when I went to put mine together, I just made all my half square triangles, and then I went ahead and stacked them up because I put my blocks together scrappy. I did not keep them together with their color family. Now, you could do that. That would be a whole different look, and it would be pretty fun. All right, so once we get all these done, we're going to have all those in a pile. I have some already made here. We'll put them in a pile. Next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to take this little square right here, and this is going to be our cornerstone. So we have 1 square of these, and we're going to cut the entire block into 2.5-inch strips, and we're going to make it, we're going to make 2.5-inch squares out of these. So you'll do this to the whole block, but we're just going to do a few here so that we can show you how we put these together. And we're just going to go ahead and cut 2.5-inch squares like this and have a stack of those, and I have those right there. And you're going to cut the whole thing. Don't stop just where I stopped. All right, so then what we're going to do is we are going to take the rest of our squares, and they are going to be the little 3-inch inner square that right here in the middle. So right here, this one right here, that's where this little square is coming into play right here. We have 2 piles of lights and darks, 16 in each pile. And then you're going to need 8 10-inch squares, and you're going to cut your 3-inch squares out of those 8. You have a little bit of room at the end because you'll cut across 3. You'll do 3 cuts of 3 like this, 1, 2, 3. And you have this little bit extra right here in case, you know, maybe you miscut or you need to recut or something. And so I like that it just makes me feel a little at ease when I'm cutting out 3-inch squares because I know I have a little bit of wiggle room. And so I'm going to come over here, and I'm just stacked all these up, and I'm going to go ahead and cut. Oops. Let me cut that again. Not enough downward pressure. We'll fix that. There we go. And one more. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our half square triangles, and we are going to take our 3-inch square, and we're going to draw a line right down the center of this 3-inch square like this. And then we're going to attach it to the light side of our block. And so we're going to lay this on here, snug it right into that corner, and we're going to sew right on that line. So let's do that. And you are going to want to do this to all of your half square triangles because it's going to take 4 of these to make a block. So I've trimmed that off, and now let's press it open. So this becomes your little squares now. And what we're doing, if you look at the quilt right here, you can see the little squares come to the middle, and we are going to sash this now. And to make the sashing, what you're going to do is you're going to cut a 6.5-inch strip. This block is 6.5. Your sashing is going to be the same size. So you're going to cut a 6.5-inch strip, and you're going to cut 1.5-inch segments, all of that. So they're all the right size. And we're going to trim off the fold and the selvage right here. I'm going to leave it folded in half. That's how I like to cut them. I like to cut a shorter distance. And we're going to leave it folded like that. And we're just going to cut our 1.5-inch strips off of this. There are actually several ways that you can do this. This saves fabric, so this is a great way to do it. If you want to save time, you could cut a 1.5-inch strip and just sew all your blocks all the way down it and trim them off. And so it'll work either way, but this is the way we wrote the pattern, and it's a good way. All right, so let's get 4 of these that have the corners sewed on. Let's see, I've got some down here. There we go. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to put this together and sew a sashing right down the center. So we've got this one right here, right down the middle, and we're going to do that to 4 of these like this. And this one is already sewn, but I'm going to go ahead and sew this one. And then we'll have 2 more sashings right here that we'll put across here with a little square in the middle, just like this. So your block is 6.5. All your sashings are going to be 6.5 to make this block. Your sashing size is 1.5 by 6.5, and your little square is going to be 1.5 as well. So let's back up and we're going to sew these two together. And I'm just going to lay this on here like this. Just like this. And sew it down 1/4 inch. And I'm going to finger press this back. And then I'm going to lay this other square. Make sure that your small squares are both lining up toward the middle. Just want to make sure that that's happening. And then we'll press this, and I'm going to press it so that my my seams go out. You can do it either way. Actually, I think I'll go in. Let's go in, and then we'll turn it over on the top and press it, and the little one on the middle I'll do out so that they'll line up nicely. All right, so now we're ready to sew this one together, and we're just going to sew 1/4 inch, and we're just going to sew these two together. I love a little cornerstone because it helps you match up the block as you go along. There we go, and one more. And on these small areas, if your stitch is a little bit bigger, you may want to shorten that so that it doesn't come out as easily. Although we're right away going to sew this into a block, so it's going to be fine. All right, we're going to iron these out because the other ones we pressed in, and then they'll nest up really nice. And so now we can add these in here. And these should just line up perfectly. So let's go ahead and put this on the edge, sew it down. I'm just going to back stitch just a little bit. And then what I do is I take a few anchoring stitches, and then I go to that next seam that I want to line up, and I go ahead and nest that. Then I can sew straight to there, and then I have to nest the seam on the other side. And let's go ahead and make sure this is turned out or in, because this one's going out. And we're going to sew across, and then we line it up with the end, and then we can sew straight down the side. And then we can press that back, finger press or iron press, and we're going to add this one, making sure that our little middle squares are toward the middle. Now I've got an interesting situation here because I've got a little bit more fabric on this side than I have on the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to put that on the bottom so that the feed dogs will take in more fabric. So let's start from this side and let that bigger side be on the bottom, and the feed dogs will just take that in. Ease it in and you won't even be able to tell. There we go. Now let's see how that looks. Yeah, that came out really nicely. So let's go ahead and I'll move this over to the iron and we can press it. I got so much stuff all over here. I really am a chaotic quilter. Alrighty. All right, so now that you have this block done, we are ready to sash it for the big block. So you'll finish all your blocks this way, and then we're ready to sash it. So this block now measures 13.5. We're gonna sash it exactly the same way, but we're gonna use 2.5 inch strips by 13.5. So right here, you'll sew it block to block to block. And then when you can sew a whole row. So let's look at this. So we've got our block here, and we've got sashing, block, sashing, block, sashing, block. Then this becomes a row, just like the other row. And this is where our 2.5 inch cornerstones come into play. So the block is 13.5. This sashing is 13.5. This sashing is also 13.5. And then your little 2.5 inch square goes in there, and across, and you just finish on. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows here with 1, 2, 3, 4 in each row. So 16 blocks total, and it just comes together easily. It's just got a little bit of pizzazz to it. It's just kind of a fun, different pattern with the double painting, and I like the two colors. I think that really offsets and makes the blocks really pop. So once you get all your blocks together, we're going to border it. We did an inner border. We went ahead and put the white all the way around it. And then we put our outer border on, and that's a 6-inch outer border. And then bound it with the same fabric. And so it just has this great feeling of continuity. I love the offset of the white to the dark border. And I just think you're going to have fun making this. And maybe it'll remind you of a French cafe. And we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on cafe windows from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you aren't already part of the Missouri Star Quilt Company family, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.